What's up in War Eagle, everybody? Happy Wednesday to y'all. We are here talking a little more Auburn football. Coach Hugh was available for the media recently, talking about some things for the upcoming season, and he projects some confidence in his quarterback and in the potential recruiting rankings. We'll talk about it all on this edition of the Midweek Report. Family, Ike Jones, Mike G in here with another midweek report brought to you by the folks over at the Rage Rooms in both the Opelika and Birmingham locations, 1510 2nd Avenue in Opelika, 2616 7th Avenue South in Birmingham. Go and get your frustrations out. Your favorite guy from the Auburn class decommit, go break some stuff at the Rage Room. Tired of hearing Mike G talk about Payton Thorne? Go break some stuff at the Rage Room.
Yeah.
Think Ike Jones is too arrogant with all his takes? Go break some stuff at the Range Room. Whatever is on your mind. Maybe you don't like fireworks and it's frustrating you that your neighbors keep popping fireworks. Go break some stuff at the Rage Room. Whichever location suits your fancy, make sure you show up and do those things. If you're in here in the chat, go ahead and share the video with somebody. I know it's a holiday coming up. Y'all ain't working right now, man. Let's get a big group of the Auburn family in here while they're barbecuing. It's not Sunday, but there are Golden's cast iron grills out there.
Yeah.
Maybe you have some time that you want to go grab one of those, but share the video with people out there and make sure that they know what's going on. And we appreciate all of that. Mike G, tell the people other ways that they can support what we got going on.
You know what to do. Media, every time we talk to y'all, media days is like 3 days closer. So we're talking to you. We're what?
2 weeks,
9 days away from media days.
Week and a half.
So we're about to be in Dallas, bringing you guys all the hot fire from SEC media days. Texas and Oklahoma joined the conference, so we're going to be there to cover it all. Join up as a member. We're going to have some member exclusive content that week that you're not going to want to miss. We get a lot of stuff directly at media days that will not be shared over the airwaves, but it will be shared on our channel. So you want to be a member for that. Also, give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. You guys have been doing an amazing job with this. Let's do some more. I know it's a holiday week, but let's see if we can get 50 memberships donated tonight. Help us grow our community. Also, I want to shout out the War Report Podcast Network. Check us out on every single podcast platform. The Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec pods, bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. And before we get into the discussion, I want to shout out 2 more show sponsors. Vintage 2298 Restaurant and Butcher Shop. If you're in the Auburn area and you're looking for a fine dining experience unrivaled by anything you've ever experienced before, visit Vintage at 2298 East University Drive in Auburn, Alabama. Our guy, Randall, over there does an amazing job. They cater our firesides. They cater. They send chefs to our firesides to cook on a cast iron grill made by, of course, Golden's Cast Iron. But last but certainly not least, I want to thank Rogue Shop for sponsoring the War Report. Visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off that Rogue Shop order. Stress, sleep, pain, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has you covered. Please visit them. Let them know that the War Report sent you.
Yes, indeed. Make sure you do all of those things. Supporting the people who support the War Report is a big reason why we continue to be able to do this, and your generosity and gifted memberships. We appreciate y'all for supporting us in all of those ways. Let's get into the conversation, though. Coach Hugh recently, not just Coach Hugh, let's be clear. It's the Auburn ambush. They're going around to different places, multiple people. It was Coach Hugh, it was AD Cohen, and it was Coach Bruce Pearl, all available. But we're gonna camp out on the comments from Coach Hugh a little bit, talk a little football stuff, and I'll probably get into some of the things that Coach Pearl said on the Lobtown. I have Lobtown episode that is live right now for those of you who like your basketball content. I promised y'all last week I was gonna do it. I got you some men's basketball content out there. Y'all go check that out. But we're going to talk about football, and we'll start the conversation with not so great news. Some stuff that we already knew, but he made it public and confirmed some things. First and foremost, a big get well soon and a speedy recovery to Tyler Scott, who during a workout tore an ACL. He is confirmed to be out for the season. So that does hurt a little depth at your defensive backs, cornerback position, but hopefully Tyler Scott will be able to bounce back from that injury with no issue. And we wish him a speedy recovery and all of those things. So yeah, Tyler Scott, prayers with you and in your recovery. Next, something that we kind of got wind of a while ago, Alex McPherson, who had been out since spring practice dealing with some gastrointestinal issues, is showing signs of progress. It was initially believed with the process or the progress that he was making that he might not even kick this season, which is why, like, when we had the conversation previously about the fourth team all SEC, and we were like, yeah, maybe
maybe pump the brakes on that one.
Maybe the other guy might be able to, we're really confident in our backup kicker too. It was because we weren't even sure that Alex was going to be kicking this season, honestly. So looking like his recovery is coming along. He may be available for the season based upon what the progress is for that right now. So wishing him continued recovery in that whole process of getting back up into playing shape. Last but not least, Tate Johnson, who has seemed to have some kind of nagging something every offseason, which is unfortunate, is undergoing or has undergone a surgery. But Coach Freeze said that his recovery and timetable from that should not prevent him from participating in fall camp. So expect Tate Johnson to be available as a rotational piece along the offensive line. But those were the injury updates from Coach Hugh Freeze from this presser. Any thoughts on any of those guys, Mike?
No, not really. Listen, prayers up for Alex McPherson. I was looking forward to seeing him kick. Listen, I know we've got a capable backup, but for Alex, you hate to see a kid's dream cut short by stuff like this. And so we're praying that he'll be able to continue his dream of kicking both at Auburn and at the next level. Yep. I know he has a brother that's in the NFL, so speedy recovery to him.
Yep, absolutely. All right. That's it on the injury front. Hopefully those are the last things that we'll have to talk about injury-wise, but it's football. Somebody else is going to get hurt at some point in time. But we're hoping it's a relatively injury-free fall for Auburn. Let's get over into what everybody's here to talk about. And, of course, we're going to start the conversation with the position that everybody loves that we talk about, and that's quarterback. It was asked of Coach Hugh Freeze. Now, before I get into Coach Freeze's comments, let's address Mike G's comments from the last show. And Mike projected his own confidence based on things he had been hearing from internally within the organization. And some people felt some kind of way about it. But then Coach Freeze has a press conference, and the question is asked of him, how confident are you in Payton Thorne? Let's hear what Coach Freeze had to say about his confidence in Payton Thorne, and then we'll give our thoughts on it. If I can find it. Boom, right there.
I'm really confident. I believe in him. I believe in his leadership. I meet with him every single week right now, and he has a knowledge of the game that is as good as I've been around for a quarterback. And now that we've gone back to some of the things I'm really familiar with, and I think he's going to be more comfortable. Now, the pieces around the quarterback have to play very well. And I think we've improved that. And hopefully now, how well can those freshmen play at certain positions? I don't know. I've seen it go really, really well. And I've seen some have to have time to develop. But I'm optimistic and believe in Payton for sure and excited. Look, I thought Hank had a heck of a spring too, and as did Holden. And Walker, I think, has a ceiling that's really, really high. It's just he's really, really young, and we've got to see him develop.
All right. Coach Freeze, off the bat, very confident in Payton Thorne, talked about his leadership, his understanding of the game, his confidence in the new system, which is Coach Freeze's old system that he's more comfortable with. Mike G, give your thoughts on what you just heard from Coach Freeze.
Crazy how those comments sound a lot like what we've been saying about Payton Thorne. So, look, man, he's got confidence in Payton. I'll reiterate, like, my confidence in Payton Thorne comes from what Payton Thorne told me would be different. And Hugh Freeze is kind of saying the same thing. He's going back to what he's used to doing. And when you're doing things the way Freeze wants to do it, how that changes things for Payton Thorne is there's a flow to how the game is coached that is more what he's used to, right? And I think that I think that matters for something. So look, man, I know a lot of people are down Ike on Payton. There's a lot of negativity about Payton Thorne and like what he might possibly, do or not do next year. And yeah, I'm saying like, some of that is unwarranted, right? Like it was now. Look, don't get me wrong. There are things independent of the players around him that he could have done better last year. Certainly,
facts.
Nobody is saying that Payton Thorne is a perfect quarterback, but the averages held true. He is a low 60% passer. You knew that when you recruited him, and what was different, what was majorly different for him was you took away his volume that he's used to getting his whole career. So if you're only going to complete 60% of your passes, you've got to give that guy 400 attempts a year. Now, why didn't they do that? Well, pretty much the story was nobody can catch. Now, were there problems at wide receiver? Sure. I'm not buying the whole nobody can catch narrative, but now you've got your guys. Now, he tried to both express confidence in the wide receivers, but also pump the brakes at the same time, too. When you listen to what he said, we feel like we've upgraded there, but, how are those freshmen going to play? I don't know.
Right.
I've seen it go really well, and I've seen it maybe go sideways because they're freshmen.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the end of my diatribe in that he has repeatedly asked for patience.
Yes.
Nowhere in Freeze's mind does he think 2024 is going to be the year for Auburn to exceed all expectations. He's trying to get you guys to wait to 2025 and 2026. So anticipate some growing pains along the way because they're still growing.
Yeah.
They've still got a little ways to go.
He said that specifically in some comments later on in that press conference. He's like, listen, I think the question was asked of him, what does he feel like is going to be different in year 2? And he's like, listen, I feel really good about where we are right now and the process of what they're building as a program. But he did stop and say, I don't know what that's going to equate to in wins and losses, though. Right. Like, I don't know where to put us on that scale right now, but he anticipates having a team that's going to go out there and be competitive. I don't know how much I love hearing that. Like, it sounds a lot like last offseason, right? Where it's like, hey, we're going to go out there, we're going to play hard. And, we're going to try to make the Auburn family proud, but I ain't making y'all no promises. I guess my question is, I wonder what an extremely, is he always going to downplay things, or is there a more confident version of Hugh Freeze that goes out there and says, hey, listen, man, we've got a dang good football team and we're going to go out there and we're going to give people hell every single Saturday. Now, are we going to win every game? I don't know, but we're a hard team to beat.
I think when the talent catches up to where he thinks it will be, you'll hear more of that.
Yeah, but I just don't want him to project all of his confidence just on, man, we've got the most talented roster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, he acknowledges to get to where Georgia and Alabama are at, it's years of recruiting. That's his belief. It's years of recruiting. Now, if you ask our guy, SEC Mike, he thinks just go to the portal and you can fix it all in one offseason. Like, we don't think that. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people think that. So it's going to take some time to get the talent in, evaluate the talent, hold on to the talent, develop the talent. This is a different job than it was when he was last in the SEC. It's a much different job. Holding on to players is harder. NIL is a thing, right? Recruiting it was always competitive, but now you've got a financial aspect to recruiting that a lot of coaches are struggling to manage. How do I recruit good players bless kids, as Hugh Freeze would say, and manage the entitlement that comes with some of that money and maintain a good team culture at the same time.
Yeah.
It's harder. And culture it's not about what you do in one off season. It's what you do in an off season and during a season and then a following off season. Right? It's back to back to back years of producing wins, getting guys to buy into the system, to work hard, be great teammates, do what's asked of them, do what they need to do in the classroom, and rinse, wash, and repeat every year. But ultimately, it's going to come down to wins on the field and draft picks, whether he'll be able to continue and hold that together. And this year has to be a stepping stone towards that. Guys getting to the NFL, right? Like people saying, hey, we're going to give a look at Auburn players more because they did well during the season. They got that big win versus Georgia.
Right.
They beat Oklahoma the first time they came to the Plains, right? They finally went into Tuscaloosa to get a win. That's when people start to take notice.
Right.
No more fourth and 31s. Now you got to start to turn that narrative around. So yeah. I think Hugh Freeze understands what this takes. I'm hopeful that this season can be a little better than what I thought it was going to be. And when I say a little better, I mean like literally a little better, like one more. Because I know some of y'all there are like, oh, 10 wins, 9 wins. Like, no, I think 8 would be a fantastic season. At 8 wins, you beat somebody nobody thought you were going to beat.
Yeah.
100% guaranteed. At 8 wins, you beat somebody nobody thought you were going to beat. So,
yeah, I mean, but yeah, based upon where the the Vegas over under is and all of that, you absolutely are going to have to get a win that you're not expected to, unless, and this is a terrible scenario, you lose to somebody you're not supposed to, and now you got to beat 2 people you're not supposed to. But still,
right.
But yeah, at least you're going to get at least 1 win that you're not supposed to get during the season to be able to get to 8.
Payton Thorne was 13th out of 14 quarterbacks last year in passing yards. And that's got to get better. Now, in terms of like completion percentage, it's a little bit different of a story because you have a lot of guys who finished in the 60s, right? But if he can get to the mid 60s, he can get from the low 60s to the mid 60s, Auburn's going to scare a lot of people next year, especially with 8 home games. If we get 65, 66% Payton Thorne, because that's about where Brady Cook was last year.
Yeah.
Missouri might have to watch out. Now, we did a segment.
Honestly, Brady Cook is the model, honestly. Like, because if you look at Brady Cook the year before last, there weren't a lot of people who were out here saying Brady Cook could be one of the best quarterbacks in this league, let alone best quarterbacks in the country type of thing. Nobody was really expecting much out of Missouri. And then enter last year, and he goes out there and he does what he does. And now you're looking at Brady Cook as a completely different let me not talk about anybody else. I wasn't sold on Brady Cook 2 seasons ago. I was just like, he's just all right. And last year he went out and he showed me a little something.
Yeah. It's becoming more and more common for the top quarterbacks in the conference to have completion percentages in the 70s. Right? Carson Beck was 72% last year. Jaden Daniels won the Heisman. Obviously, he was 72%. Graham Mertz was 72%. Right in there, you had Wegman, who was 68%. Spencer Rattler was 68%. Milroe was 65%. Once you start getting into the mid 60s, you're gonna scare some people in this league from that position. And the low 60s, you need help. You need help, right? And so, if we want to see him doing all, they've got to get him to 66%, and they've got to get him north of there's so many prolific passers now. Now we didn't have a ton. We had 5 3,000-yard passers in 2023. Spencer Rattler, Brady Cook, Jackson Dart, Jaden Daniels, and Carson Beck. And that's to get in to the top 5 in the league in passing, you got to be north of 3,000 yards. But again, Jalen Milroe only had 2,800 yards passing. Right. So if he gets to where he was at Michigan State, you can win the conference. Hear me out.
That conversation for sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You have a chance to win the conference if you can get into. Now, listen, Quinn Ewers is in the conference now, right? So you got one more, probably 3,000-yard guy that you're going to have to contend with, and it has become a little bit of a quarterbacks conference.
Used to be a very different SEC.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah. So what can Payton Thorne do for you? I think that Cam Coleman going to be good for a win. I know he's a freshman, but I think he's that good. right? Like, and if you think about all the games that Auburn lost because they didn't get one more touchdown, Cam Coleman's going to be good for a win. He is. He's going to be good for that touchdown on a red zone fade that they couldn't throw before. The defense is going to play well. I think they're going to acquit themselves well. And, it's going to be about making more plays, more explosive plays. And they didn't really have that last year. They haven't had it for a while. And so, if you got more guys you think can make explosive plays, I still say keep an eye on Perry Thompson as the season goes along.
For sure.
Right? Keep an eye on him, and we'll see where this thing ends up. But yeah, his confidence in Payton Thorne, I think you have to be there if you're Hugh Freeze. You can't go into the season lukewarm on your quarterback.
Yeah, and
you can't say that publicly. You know what I mean? Like, you need if you're going to start him.
This is what someone, and not to cut you off because I'm kind of interjecting in the same thing that you're talking about. This is something that they were talking about in the chat earlier. Last year he was confident in Payton Thorne, right? And so, does this confidence in Payton Thorne how much of this is I'm projecting confidence onto my starter, and how much of this is true confidence in the guy? Because he said some of these same things last year. I like his leadership. He's got a good knowledge of the game. Is it just him saying what he needs to say about his starter? Because listen, you go back into last spring, I think I can win football games with these guys. And this is when TJ Finley, Robbie Ashford, and Holden Gerner were the guys on the roster at quarterback. Payton Thorne hadn't even been a thought in the mind of Auburn fans at that point in time. How much of this is the coach just saying what he needs to say about his starter, in your opinion? Because, of course, you don't know Hugh Freeze or be able to read his mind. And how much of this is truly, I have supreme confidence in his abilities?
I think it's more like I have confidence in Payton Thorne. And because it's his guy, he picked him. And he defended him all last year. Now, there were times where he said, Payton can play better. But for the most part, if anybody got thrown under the bus, it was the guys around Payton. So I think he has confidence in him. He said, upgrade the guys around him and you get a better Payton Thorne. And I'm like, okay, that's almost true of any quarterback, Hugh. But but ultimately he picked him. So I'm with him. Again, I think that there are some things that will be markedly different from last year in terms of play calling, scheme, and execution. I think the communication is going to be a lot better. I think they're going to all be on the same page this year, and that will be good for a win that nobody expects Auburn to get. Georgia fans, man, I'm telling you, a lot of them were like, Auburn was a tough game last year. Knowledgeable Georgia fans acknowledged that game looked harder than it ended. It was harder.
I mean, Auburn only lost by a touchdown, so it was close the entire game. And truthfully, it was a game that I feel like physically Auburn, I won't say dominated, but they held their own against Georgia all last season in that game. And it really did come down to a couple of plays here and there that Auburn just couldn't make. And to your point and Coach Freeze's point, that's what he's hoping has been remedied by the addition of this talent. Is you throw a fade route last year to Malcolm Johnson Jr., and he's not able to come up with that. Is Cam Coleman able to make that catch in that situation to prolong a drive, put you in now scoring position? If you're in a situation now where you've got, I don't know, a 4th and short in the red zone, you're not trotting Payton Thorne out there to try, and then you're going to turn around and hand the ball off on a short run. Now we're going to throw a fade route up, and we've got 2 or 3 guys. So you can't just say, all right, well, we're going to cover Valdo, and the rest of you guys got to figure it out. We're going to double cover Valdo, and everybody else got to figure it out. It's like, okay, now it's 4th and short. Who do you double team on this play? Because you're going to get a one-on-one with either Rivaldo Fairweather or Cam Coleman, or I don't know, pick your poison of the tall receivers. Who do you double team on this play? And it just doesn't work out in your favor because we've got multiple guys that he can go up there and get it. So, you're hoping that's the situation. If you're in the Iron Bowl and back of the end zone, VAR, it dropping a touchdown that pretty much seals the game for you, right? Like all of those scenarios you're thinking.
That game was tied in the 4th quarter. Georgia was tied in 2020. It was 2020 in the 4th quarter of that game, right? Well, who they had last year and the problems that they had last year with play calling. So if you're thinking they didn't. I don't think they got worse in the offseason. Now, defensively, they lost some dudes.
Yeah.
Right. But I think there are other dudes behind them. So, we'll see. But that's part of the game is relock, reload. And, I mean, you may not know who the next guy at Georgia is, but he's there.
Yeah.
The next guy that's going to step up is there.
Because listen, this was the same thing going into last season that people said about Georgia, in their back-to-back title season. They're like, how do you replace this guy? How do you replace this guy? And Kirby was like, we're going to do it by.
They got better. Yeah, they somehow got better. Yeah,
he's like, what do you mean? How do I replace him? I got a bunch of other 5-stars sitting on the bench right now that are just going to step in and play just as well as these other guys. And you can tell that he went into that season confident he had a good football team, right? He knew, right? Listen, I've got dudes here. Don't worry about it. We got dudes. And we're not going to, what did he say? We're not going to be hunted, right? Like, he's like, no, we're going to be the aggressor in every game.
Right.
And people have to contend with the fact that we're coming every single season.
Well, so you got Georgia that you lost to by a touchdown. You got Ole Miss that you lost to by a touchdown. And you got Bama that you lost to by 3 points. On the last play of the game.
I can force rewatching those games. Yeah. There's definitely a path for Auburn to have won each one of those
games. Yeah. So now listen, Ole Miss, the end score looked a little closer because they kind of scored.
They scored in the last minute.
To make it a 1 touchdown lead. So I don't think they were, but it's not like they did nothing against Ole Miss.
No.
I just think that there's some things there that you can look at, and you don't lose your G5 game. Like, that was a mental flop by Auburn. That wasn't about talent. That was a mental flop. So, there's 4 games that you could have had. If you split that, that's an 8-win season. Beat New Mexico State and then win one of the 3 that I mentioned.
Yeah. So
I think that they can do it this year. Again, you got 8 home games. You got to get 1 on the road, 1 of the 4 on the road. They're going to be really hard. Georgia, Alabama, Missouri, Kentucky. Like, all those games are going to be tough. And so you get 1 of the 4 on the road, so that you don't have a winless October. And then you get your home games. Oklahoma's going to be tough. I think that's going to be a tough matchup. And Auburn, I don't know. They haven't played Oklahoma well as of late. Last couple times they played, it's not been great. So, we'll see where he goes, but it starts with Payton Thorne. It's a quarterbacks league. Now, I just want to remind people who the quarterbacks in the league were last year, man. It was tough last year. It was really tough. Yeah, you had a Heisman winner in the league last year. You had another guy who, probably, again, Brady Cook and Luther Burden, top 2 or 3, if not the best QB wide receiver combination. You had Jalen Milroe, who just missed the Heisman ceremony.
Right.
You had Graham Mertz, who played really well in a lot of stretches last year. You had guys in the league, and if you're not going to have a guy in that mid-60s to low 70s completion percentage, I think it's going to be really, really difficult to compete. So, they feel like they can get that guy in for the future. But if you're Payton, man, like, this is his time, man. This is his time. If he has any aspirations of playing at the next level, he's got to do it this year. And he's got to win some games. Now, does he have to be otherworldly? No. But, that doesn't mean, like, 3,000 yards passing is not otherworldly at today's college football. Like, it's so common now. It just hasn't been common at Auburn.
Correct.
And I think that Hugh Freeze thinks that he can do that. Now, in the interview that we had with him, the one-on-one I did, he talked about his pass attempts being the lowest of any quarterback he's ever coached in his whole career. I find it unlikely that he does that again. And the rise in pass attempts will reflect the confidence that he has in the passing game, because he's got his guy at quarterback and he's got his guys at receiver and Rivaldo Fairweather. So, we'll see where it ends up. But, those are my thoughts on that. Like, I think that we've been saying a lot of what he said in that press conference.
For sure.
Because we knew that was his mindset about this. We both talked to him directly and people around him and players, and they just feel like, hey, we're downplaying it now, but we're not as far away from doing something special as people are acting. Now, special is subjective, right? Special for you. But look, man, you go out and you get a special win. How awesome would it be? Because remember, Saban is gone. To go into Tuscaloosa and get a win. Your first as Auburn head coach. Haven't won there since 2010, and even that was the most epic comeback we've ever seen Auburn pull off. It has been difficult going out there. I mean, down 24-0, came back and won at Tuscaloosa. Now, you needed the best college football player of all time to do it. Yep. Do they have what it takes to go into Tuscaloosa and give them a run for their money? I think that's what people want to see from Hugh Freeze. Don't let Oklahoma come into your house and take one their first year in the SEC.
Right.
Don't do that. Defend home. Let them know, hey, listen, when you see us on the schedule in subsequent years, be very afraid.
Yeah, it ain't sweet when you roll down.
It's not going to be that, right? Like, you don't have Ole Miss, LSU, or Mississippi State to contend with. The way things are looking, kind of wish we still had Mississippi State on the schedule, but you still got Vandy out there to tune up against. But it's not a lot of gimmies left on the schedule, man. I think it's going to be a really difficult and give Cal the business.
Yeah.
Screw those guys. I ain't like them last year. I don't like them this year. But now they're coming to the Plains, right? So Auburn went out there and got the win on the West Coast. But now they're coming to the Plains. Give those guys the business when they come into Jordan Hare and show them, listen, this isn't pack football you're playing.
Right.
It's hot. It's humid. And we play in this. This is what we do. And you're not going to beat us in our house. They have a good chance to start 5-0. And you're going to see what Payton Thorne is in those first 5 games. Make no mistake.
Well, here's the thing, I've said this before. I don't believe you're going to know what Payton Thorne is in those first 5. I need to see Payton Thorne on the road because that's where he's played his worst games. Not that he played tremendous games at home, but he was way more comfortable at home. It was on the road where Payton Thorne looked like a deer in headlights. Yeah, that Cal game was it started out terribly for him. That A&M game was awful for Payton Thorne.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that is you only got 4 road games, and 3 of them are against top 25 teams. I really feel like if you're going to find out what he is, you're going to find out at home, right, this year. Because nobody's going to say if they lose to Georgia or Alabama, Missouri, Payton Thorne's up.
I guess I'm talking about the bigger picture of who Payton Thorne is as a quarterback. Now, you're going to be able to win games at home with Payton Thorne. Sure. I'm just saying if he's got aspirations of playing any football outside of this last collegiate year that he has, that's the measuring stick on how far Payton Thorne has come. How can he play on the road?
Yeah.
And hopefully in those first couple of games, he builds up enough confidence and camaraderie and all of those things to be able to carry in momentum when he goes on the road. But that's again, putting Payton Thorne on the championship scale and not the just improvement scale.
Well, look, Freeze has to get him there. Like, he needs help to get there. You need competent play calling. You need a good system. You need coaches who, are on the same page with each other and with you.
Yeah.
So Payton Thorne can't go out there and do it on his own. He's not that kind of quarterback.
Correct.
Right. So, there are some guys that will just go out there and make a play for you no matter what you call. I think Payton, he needs them to do their part so he can do his part.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to continue with some more of what Coach Freeze talked about. He got into some things about this recruiting class that we want to talk about, but you all are watching the midweek report right here on the War Report. We'll be back at you guys right after this quick break. Word from our sponsors. This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today or check them out online at opelikaRageRoom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Hey, you guys know the deal. Sign up as a patron, $5.99 a month. We'll get you there. We're going out to media days, so we need your support so we can get through that out in Dallas Heat. It's going to be hot, but we're going to be there anyway. $5.99 a month. Hit that join button. Also, hit that gifted membership button and help somebody else join. Gifted memberships is a great program that YouTube has started. We appreciate you guys for doing that. Look, check us out on podcasts, every single podcast platform. We're there with audio-only content, Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec. Also want to shout out show sponsors Vintage 2298, Restaurant and Butcher Shop. Please visit them if you're in the Auburn area looking for a great fine dining experience. Our guy, Randall Baldwin, is over there, and they'll take care of you. Just make sure you tell them that the War Report sent you. They love hearing that. Also, please visit RogueShop.com for all your stress, sleep, anxiety, and pain needs. The Rogue Shop has something for you. Use code REPORT to get 15% off. Also want to give one more shout out to show sponsor, The Rage Room. Visit them in Opelika or Birmingham. 1510 Second Ave in Opelika, 2616 7th Ave in Birmingham. This is a fun experience. You can like book a party. Like you could just have a whole party of friends that go out there and just bust it up. It's so much fun. So visit the Rage Room and also let them know the War Report sent you. Our guy Alex will take care of you guys over there.
Absolutely. Let's get over into the comment section before we get to the next portion. We'll start it off, as always, with super chats. First one in here from Hunter Hannah says, looking at the landscape of this team, the seniors we have a 4-year starter at QB. We have a chance to have a better year than most think, in my opinion. Yeah. I don't think that's a crazy take. You definitely have a chance to have a better year than most people would assume that you will. Listen, the landscape of this team last year, in my opinion, should have had a better season than what they had, right? So if we're to believe Coach Freeze and everyone else who feels as if this roster is markedly better than last season's roster, then you absolutely should have a better season than last year. Like, I don't think 6 wins should feel like an acceptable outcome from this year's Auburn football team. I just don't. I mean, 7 wins is fine, right? Like, I think that 7 wins that's a season you can look back and say, okay, we did well in. I just don't think 6 wins is a good outcome for this team. They're too talented.
Yeah, I agree. Look, man, better is 8. Vegas set the line at 7.5, and I think that line is dead on. Right? I thought the ceiling was 7 before spring. I think maybe it's 8 now. I don't think they do worse than 6-6 with this schedule, but we'll see where they land up.
Lawrence Robinson jumps in and says there was a path for Auburn to have beaten Texas A&M last year too. I actually agree with this.
Yeah, I actually agree with that too, man. Look, man,
people forget Robbie Ashford threw what should have been a touchdown to Shane Hooks late in that game, fourth quarter, which would have brought Auburn within 1 score in that game. They were down by 10.
Yeah,
if Shane Hooks catches that, you're within a score with almost the entirety of the fourth quarter ahead of you, and an Auburn team that had started to run the ball a lot more effectively second half of that game. I don't disagree with this take, even though it came out looking really bad against them. But yes,
for sure.
Let's see. Brad Browning says PT also was tied for 4th in sacks. Decision making has to be better.
Yeah,
this is the truth.
Yeah, that's true. But there was a mix of things there, right? Like, I don't think protection was horrible last year, but it wasn't. Not all those sacks were on him. There were some line failures at times.
Usually the sacks aren't all on the QB, but
he
definitely. His decision making led to some sacks out there of just not getting rid of the football, or
for sure,
getting a little too hesitant in certain scenarios, running himself into sacks. He's got to be better. And those are the things I think, like, I've said this plenty of times. Those are the things that frustrate me about Payton Thorne. It's the things that I don't expect from a 3rd-year starter last year, and now coming into a 4th-year starter. I don't expect to see those types of things. I don't expect you to not have blitz recognition at the line of scrimmage. Those are the things that Payton Thorne has to be better, and you expect it if he's a first-year starter or freshman. And those are things that frustrated me the most about him last year.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's found a way to be more confident in what he's seeing and more comfortable with who he's throwing to, so that he makes those decisions a little bit more quickly this season.
Agreed.
Let's see. What else do we have here? Lawrence says Auburn's going 12-0 on my PS5 in 2 weeks.
That's great. Yeah, I agree. I agree with this take.
Yeah, for those that don't
stack that team,
Auburn gaming channel over there, make sure that you're locked in there. There will be plenty of gameplay videos going up on that channel once that game is live. Dustin and Dylan and Blake are our resident gamers. They'll be giving you guys plenty of content over there on TWR Gaming if you want to look that up. Question here from Stephen Allen says, if Auburn goes 5-7, is it time to fire Freeze?
I think the seat will be hot. At 5-7, you definitely lost the game you weren't supposed to lose. Right? At 5-7, oh man, you might have lost a G5 game in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And if that happens 2 years in a row, I will. I don't know about fire Freeze, but like, you can't say you like the talent and improve the roster and go 5-7.
Yeah, no, I'll say definitively to answer the question, is it time to fire Freeze? Absolutely not.
Not.
I just don't know how you have
But
a top
seat
10.
will be hot.
Yeah, I don't know how you have back-to-back top 10 recruit. The difference between, because I guess the comparison is, what happened with Harsin and what is currently going on with Coach Freeze. The difference between those two is fundamentally the recruiting. Like, if Coach Harsin had recruited better and had the same results on the field, he maybe survives. But you can't recruit as poorly as Harsin was recruiting and have poor results. Like, you have to pick a struggle. Like, which one of these things are you going to be bad at? Are you going to be poor with your stuff on the field and you just need to upgrade the talent, but you're working to upgrade the talent? Or are you going to be really good on the field, and you're showing the results, but you're not getting the players, and it makes people feel tenuous about it because you're not replenishing the talent.
Yeah.
But you can't be both of those guys.
Agreed.
You got to pick a struggle. So Harsin definitely didn't do himself any favors with his off the field stuff that didn't complement what was happening on the field. And Coach Freeze is not in that position, not in year 2. Now, year 3, come back and let's have this conversation of, if he goes 5-7 this year, and then you have a repeat of 5-7, 6-6 year 3, then we gotta have a talk.
I think at 5-7, you're going to see the recruiting struggle going into 2026 class
For sure. That's why I say we're going to have a talk, because you're gonna start off behind the 8 ball going into the 2026 class, and then if you start to have poor performances again on the field,
it becomes a question of competency, right?
Wheels fall off.
It will.
But I don't think we're.
I don't think that's likely. 5-7 is not a likely scenario.
Yeah, it's a very unlikely scenario at this point in time. Edward Norton feels like the record's gonna be 10-3 or 9-4.
That's a lot of booging, man. That's a lot of booging. I don't see it, but I'm happy to be wrong on this one. I don't see 9-4. Oof. Man, that's a bowl game win too, which means you probably beat somebody formidable in your bowl game.
Yeah.
So 10-3, you beat somebody formidable in your bowl game. So I don't know. Like, and think about this: at 10-3, you won all your home games, and you went 2 for 2. At 10-3, they might be in the college football playoff.
Yeah, if you get to 10 wins
if
in
you
the regular
finish
season.
Yeah, if you get in the regular season, so
Yeah.
not finishing 9-3, but finishing 10-2.
Right.
Yeah, a 10-2 Auburn team is going to be in the back end of that playoff. I promise you, because they'll be sitting out there, and their only 2 losses will be like Alabama or Georgia. They'll be Ole Miss from last year.
Yeah.
Or Missouri.
Right.
Yeah, right. So, and then you'll have wins against Oklahoma and Missouri and
Kentucky,
and Texas
A&M.
Yeah. Come on, man. That team's in the playoffs. So, Ed, I just want you to know, in today's college football, you're predicting a playoff berth for Auburn next year, which is that's going to be tough. But again, happy to be wrong.
Yeah. All right. Let's get over into the second portion of this. Coach Hugh Freeze, again, addressing the media recently. And the question was asked of Coach Freeze, where did he feel like the team was as far as recruiting? And this is another hot topic, of course, being debated amongst the Auburn fan base of where this team can finish in recruiting. They specifically asked, does he still feel as if this is a recruiting class that can land in the top 5? And we'll hear his answers on that.
Yeah, I can't keep up with it. I don't know where we are, but yes, I'm confident that we're going to recruit very, very well. You guys know the rankings better than I, and it ebbs and flows with the commitments and decommitments, and I think all of that is still fluctuating and never final until you get them there. But that's my goal. I've spoken it and told you all that, and I do believe we're going to be really close to a top 5 class when it's all said and done.
Really close to a top 5 class when it's all said and done. Now, Auburn was already up there in the top 5 before the recent decommitment.
Yeah,
that happened. And there's decommitments happening all over college football. I don't know why. I say I don't know why Auburn fans freak out. Literally every fan base starts going absolute crazy. Like, it becomes this thing of like, oh, the system is terrible. And these kids don't know what commitment is when somebody decommits from your school, but then when they decommit from somebody else's school, you guys suck and you can't recruit. It's just the way that it is in college football. Decommitments have been happening well before NIL was a thing. Decommitments and people changing their minds have always been a part of this process. I don't know why people all of a sudden want to attribute that to money and kids chasing the bag. Listen, man, it happens. People decommit. But Coach Freeze still confident that Auburn can land, if not in the top 5, very close to it. Thoughts on that?
There's no reason to doubt Hugh Freeze in recruiting at this point. None. Coming off the season that he inherited, right? And the recruiting class that he turned in even in that first year. And then we saw what he did, for 2020. Going into 2025, I just don't like. He has shown if he's going to put his full weight behind recruiting, that thing is going to be successful. I think at worst it's a top 10 class, because they fell to 11 to 13, depending on which site you're looking at right now with the decommitments. But there will be some surprise flips and commitments that come back this way that bump them back up there. Now, top 5 is tough. It's always tough because of who you're up there with in the top 5. It just is what it is. So, if you're going to get into the top 5, you're contending with the likes of Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, A&M, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. Top. Yeah. Right now, Texas is down at 17, but they only have 13 commits in their class.
To say they won't. They'll finish in the top 10.
Yeah. So, we'll see where it ends up. But ultimately, I don't think there's any reason to doubt Hugh Freeze in recruiting. Right. He's going to get guys in here. Now, the thing in recruiting to keep an eye on is, do they get that transformational player in the class? A lot of people thought it might be Juju Lewis. Right? Do you get that 5-star quarterback? We did a whole show on what happens to the QB room if they get Juju Lewis. Can you get guys like that, can't miss guys to come? Now, I don't know if Juju Lewis is a can't miss guy. I'm just going to say that now. Right? Like, I mean, he's very highly rated, but I don't know. After watching some
quarterbacks, man, like there are so. I don't think people realize how rare it is to have a can't miss quarterback.
Yeah, listen, and I don't want anybody hearing that I don't think Juju Lewis is good.
Yeah.
Right. But like, can you miss on him? Yeah, I think so. I think that, he may or may not be a kid that can go out there and save you from yourself. Right. Like, and some of those guys even have to be developed at least first.
Yeah.
Right? Like Joe Burrow didn't come into college football Joe Burrow. He was a good quarterback, but he had to develop into the guy that broke all the records in 2019. Daniels.
I have no idea what Joe Burrow was when he was a freshman, but to your point, he didn't start immediately. He had to be behind somebody.
Jaden Daniels, I was living in Phoenix when he went to Arizona State. I seen him play live in person. He was a great quarterback, but he wasn't Heisman Jaden Daniels. He had to grow into that quarterback, right? So, I just think that it's going to be recruiting from here on in. Top 10 is going to be a given for a Hugh Freeze coach team, barring catastrophic results on the field, right? Like, but if he can keep Auburn in the 8-9 win territory, recruiting is always going to be top 10 here. Now, can he get that guy? And we've heard stories about this over the years. Remember when Trooper Taylor went out to go see Cam Newton play, and the story we were told about how he came back and they told Gene Chizik, we have to get this guy, right? Urban Meyer's staff, they went to go see Tebow. They said, if we don't get Tim Tebow, it will set our program back 10 years.
Right.
They just knew that was the guy. I want to know if Hugh Freeze can go out and get that guy. Now, at quarterback. Now, Cam Coleman is that type of kid, but he can't catch his own passes. You got to have somebody to throw him the ball. So
this goes back to what I was saying about Cook, right? Brady Cook. When you look at what's the kid's name, Luther Burden, his freshman season. Luther Burden, if you go back and look at his freshman numbers, they weren't very good. Like he was frustrated with how he was being used in that offense, but it had a lot to do with the fact that offense needed some time to evolve but when you get to year 2, Luther Burden there with Brady Cook, you see a guy who's looking like a Bolitnikoff guy that was more like what people thought he was going to be out of high school. And it wasn't because Luther Burden wasn't ready. It's because he just wasn't getting the targets. That offense was kind of sputtering out there. Like it just wasn't everything that it needed to be. And so, this goes back to what you've been saying a lot, Mike G, about like, I don't want to hear Cam Coleman's a bust after year one because he wasn't getting targets the way that he should have been in this offense or whatever. No, that Cam Coleman's is really that good. You need to have put the ball in his hands.
Yeah, if he doesn't work out, it's you, right? Like there are some players, it's not me, it's you, right?
Yeah,
and that's the type of player that I think that's why we're talking about him starting from game one,
right?
Freeze, they played him like he was a starter all spring, and you know who was the first receiver to go out there on A-Day? Cam Coleman was. Every one of these quarterbacks wants Cam Coleman on the field to throw to. That's how good he is. So if you can get enough of those guys, around the quarterback, then okay, maybe you don't need a generational talent at quarterback, but it would be nice to get one every once in a while.
Yeah.
If you can, even Stetson Bennett in year 2 of starting played like a generational quarterback. Certainly, he wasn't game manager. He was a playmaker in that second title run.
Yeah, no, Stetson Bennett was out there.
He was a playmaker. Yeah, he was a game manager in year 1, and it was all defense. But in year 2, without him, they absolutely do not win. If anybody else starts at quarterback, they don't win back-to-back titles.
Having seen what their backups look like, I'll have to agree with you.
Yeah, if anybody else but Stetson Bennett starts, they do not win back-to-back titles.
Yeah. I don't know that Carson Beck was ready at that point
for that. Yeah. Look, man, he raised his game year over year, and we had a Georgia fan that came to this channel and got all mad. Mike G, I don't know what you're talking about. Our defense is going to be otherworldly. Now, listen, it was. But you're not beating Ohio State in that first playoff game without Stetson Bennett.
Yeah,
that was a shootout.
Yeah.
That was a shootout. Points. Yeah, they had to miss a field goal at the end for you to win it.
Right.
I mean, it was points were paramount in that game, and your quarterback, he was out there dropping dimes. And so now obviously he had great targets, but he was throwing them darts as well too. They weren't bailing Stetson Bennett out. And so can you get a Stetson Bennett type quarterback who can throw darts, but also throw them to NFL prospects? That's what Hugh Freeze, I think, is trying to do. I think he understands that generational QB talents don't come around very often. And even if you think you have one, you probably missed. Right.
Which is why you have to stay. Like, this is the whole thing about like people saying, are people looking past Walker White? Like, it's not about looking past Walker White. I need to stack the talent in that room with 5 stars, 4 stars, guys that a lot of people feel like they should have on their team, so that if by chance this kid isn't as good as we thought he was going to be out of high school, next man up is actually a really good quarterback too. And I ain't going to miss on all of them. I trust my evaluation enough that I could go 1 for 3.
Yeah.
I just need to figure out which one of these 3 is the guy.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, you've got to be able to stack talent, like you're saying. You've got to be able to put it together. You've got to convince guys to stay and wait their turn. And you're, if you're Georgia, right, like you couldn't hold on to everybody in that QB room. That's why Vandergriff was gone. Right. It was just impossible. At one point, remember, they had Eason and Fields and Fromm in there, and they had to lose 2 of them. And the 2 that left went on to be starters at other programs. And Fields had a pretty good career at Ohio State.
Right.
Right. I would argue they let the best quarterback in the bunch get out of the room, but that's how much talent they had. Right. In Fields. So it's going to be tough for Hugh Freeze, but you keep stacking talent around your QB as much as you can. Right. And hopefully, if you don't have a generational talent there, the talent around them and the system makes up for what he maybe lacks in generational talent. And you still can go out there and win. I don't think that Jackson Dart is he's a very good quarterback, but he's not a generational talent. He throws football. Right. Yeah. But look, man, they put enough pieces around him. Trey Harris is going to be one of the better wide receivers in college football this year.
True.
Right. And they've got a system that consistently produces on the offensive side of the football. They've got play calling. They've got just enough pieces there Lane Kiffin has to be a contender. And I think Hugh Freeze, I think that's where he wants the floor for Auburn football to be. What Ole Miss did last year, that needs to become the expectation, the floor. So when they start doing those silly-ass season predictions, everybody's got one. This team's going to go 11-1. people are consistently saying 10-2.
Yeah.
10-2, 10-2. I think, like, you know, I mean, and if you're Georgia or Alabama, especially Georgia, 10-2 is a terrible season.
Yeah.
That's how high the expectations there are. Like, at 10-2, you lost the game that you were supposed to win at 10-2. That's
yeah.
nuts.
When you get to a certain place in your program's expectations, yes, 2 losses on the season feel catastrophic.
Insane. So
yeah,
that's all I'm saying. Jay Murphy, I see you here, my boy. Join up, do this, do it before media days. So like I'm hoping that Hugh Freeze can raise the bar there, and it starts with recruiting. Coming full circle back to where we started here. You know, will Auburn have a top 5 class? Hugh Freeze thinks so, and if it's not, it's going to be bordering on, because some of that. You know, again, the way they evaluate the talent, and guys will move
this
up and
guy
down.
supposed to be a 4-star or 5-star?
5-star, yeah, blah, right. Yeah. So what you want is, but you want a class right around 5, because we know that there's very little difference between like the 5th ranked class and the 10th ranked class a lot of times.
Right.
You know, and it may look good on paper, but there are a couple of busts in that 5 in that 5th ranked class. For sure. And you may have at 10 may have gotten some diamond in the roughs. And when you go back and re-rank those classes, how many times would the 10th class been like the 4th class? So you just want a top 10 class, and you want to make sure that you get the generational guy at a position every recruiting cycle, right? So on offensive side of the ball, you want one. I think last year was Cam Coleman. Wouldn't hurt to get one at quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, that's when things get exciting. When you get that dude at quarterback, that's been the whole history of Auburn.
Yeah.
When Jason Campbell got it together, undefeated. I think we're the Eufaula Times national champions of 2004. Somebody named Auburn national title. I said Eufaula Times. I think that's a real paper. The Pelham Times, right? So 2010, again, another undefeated season. And you got a Heisman to boot out of it. Quarterback, 2013, Nick Marshall. Woo!
Right.
Oh, man, you got gushed in that game against Florida State, but you were one good third quarter away from winning another national title.
Right.
Jarrett Stidham, he got gushed too, but 2017, you were one Georgia win, one SEC championship away from the playoff. So whenever Auburn has been able to find a quarterback,
and let's be clear, a quarterback, it doesn't even have to be Cam Newton generational. It just needs to be a guy who operates the system that he's in the way that it's supposed to be operated.
Yeah. Listen, man, Stidham is the best pure passer to ever come through Auburn. They underachieved with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback, in my opinion. I thought he was that talented of a passer at the college level. And if he goes to Georgia and they give him a chance to start, man, Kirby probably wins a national title with Stidham. That's how good I think Jarrett Stidham was. So, what Auburn fans are hoping is that Hugh Freeze brings the type of system that when you plug in players like Jarrett Stidham, they win awards. Right? They're winning Maxwell's, right? They were winning Bolitnikovs. They're winning Heisman's and Hugh Freeze's system. Now, listen, they're not winning Lincoln Riley isn't winning championships, but at least he can sell the system that wins Heisman's and gets guys to the league.
And yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and now that there's a 12-team playoff, he's going to have a team in it. If he continues to do what he does, I mean, he's in the Big Ten now. So no longer can he throw against high school defenses. But he did it in the Big 12. And if he can do what he's done in the last 2 conferences in the Big Ten, they'll be in the playoff every year. And that's going to be the bar. Now, I talked with Josh Pate about this. Look, man, people are going to hate this 12-team playoff in the SEC. They're going to hate it. Because
they're going to hate it. You're saying outside of the SEC, they're going to hate it.
Yeah, outside of the SEC, they're going to hate it, right? Because 3 teams are getting in no matter what. The SEC champion and the SEC runner-up in a no division format. The top 2 are getting in. 3 is probably getting in because if you finish 3rd, your only losses were likely to 1 and 2.
Right.
And 4 has a strong chance of getting in. So last year, I repeat, Alabama got in, but Georgia gets in last year, Missouri gets in last year, and Ole Miss gets in last year.
More than likely.
Right? And in a weird universe, there might even be a 5th team that is on the tail end being talked about, and everybody's going to be bitching about SEC bias. You know it's coming. So if you're Hugh Freeze, your goal every year has to be top 4 in the conference because you're guaranteed a playoff spot. 10-2 in the SEC, in a 16-team SEC guarantees you a playoff spot. Now, can he do that? Well, you're going to have to get over your Georgia hump. You have to beat Bama every once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to be able to give up G5 games. So I think it's, again, when we talked about the close games last year, if he can find a way to win the close ones instead of finding more spectacular ways to lose the close ones, because that was Gus. Right? It felt like they'd give a big win here and there, but then when you thought they got over the talent hump, they'd find spectacular ways to lose. You know,
Very
so
factual.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for from Hugh Freeze. And I think that if he can do that, he'll coach at Auburn for a very, very long time.
Yeah, he made it clear in this press conference, you know, that Auburn is where he wants to be, right? Like he said, we're very comfortable here. You know, I'm assuming he's talking about his family and the staff that he's brought along. Very comfortable here, you know. So he's not slow playing Auburn to another job. He wants to be at Auburn, but he's hoping that the Auburn family will give him the patience that will allow him to put the roots down and really grow this program in the way that he wants to. And it starts, again, with the ability to continue to stack this talent with these recruiting classes, because that's the way he's chosen to build this program, is through high school recruiting. Off to a good start. Hopefully he can continue that and get some more top 5 classes rolling through here going into the next season. Let's go ahead and jump over here to the comment section before we get out of here. Otis Smith jumps in. Good to see you here with the super chat. It says, War Damn Eagle fam, just got in yesterday from more work. It's been a while, and the last few months, today football makes me forget about real life. Oda, hopefully everything is going well with you, man. I know you're out there serving our country, doing all the wonderful things, man.
Appreciate your service, brother.
Thank you so much for hopping in with us today. JJ Brand says Stidham is currently projected to be the starter for Denver.
I mean, he had an NFL arm.
Yeah.
He had an NFL, like one of the few quarterbacks to come through Auburn in the last 20 years that definitely had an NFL arm. So, you know, it's competitive, right? Like there are 32 starting jobs in the NFL, right? And when you're competing for one of 32, it's difficult. So I hope that he takes advantage of it, man. Like, it's been a while since we've seen a guy from Auburn starting in the NFL. Be nice.
Yeah, I mean, Stidham, started a couple of games last season, but to your point, he wasn't the projected starter going into the season. So hopefully, you know, that trend of NFL caliber quarterbacks starts to make its adjustment. And, you know, listen, I'll be clear about this. I don't think that starts with Payton Thorne. He's not, in my opinion, not going to be an NFL caliber quarterback. But hopefully whoever takes the reins next after Payton Thorne works their way into that conversation. Ant jumps in and says, I can see a year where the SEC gets 5 teams in the college football playoff.
I can too, Ant. I think that it's 100% possible. Just be ready for unprecedented levels of complaining from other conferences when this happens. That's going to be the SEC Invitational. It's going to look like.
Yeah, they're going to definitely. I think it's going to be interesting, you know, to see how many teams from the Big Ten get in, right? Because the Big Ten's got this enormous conference.
Yeah.
And they'll have some talented folks, but like, is it going to be so top heavy where they're just beating each other up on, you know, the lower end of the conference, and then like the middle folks just look kind of mediocre? Like, I do wonder what it's going to look like in the Big Ten. But you have teams like a Penn State, right? That's kind of just been hovering right around 9 to 10 wins every season. Do they have an opportunity to jump in there?
They do. They do.
Teams like, you know, Notre Dame, I think, are the ones that are going to be out there ruining people's party, though, right? Like, how much consideration are they going to get with no conference that they're going to be in? So it's going to be really interesting. Another super chat from Oda, who says it's Auburn versus everyone, so let's get it. I can't agree with you more. Auburn versus everybody. Agnes says, do you not think that Payton Thorne was messed up by the contradictory signals he was getting from our offensive scheme? I'm hoping we are now offering a scheme for him to get back to and even improve.
Yes. I do. With all my heart.
I think this impacted everybody. I think everyone was out there like, yo, what are we doing?
Yeah,
offensively? We lamented this. Listen, man.
I got a lot of heat last year, Ike, for talking scheme, and people were like, "Well, players have to execute." And I'm like, "Well, you can have a bad game plan. The idea that you can throw any game plan out there, and as long as you execute it, it can work." No, man. There is a coach on the other side of the field actively trying to stop you from accomplishing what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
and if he's good at it, you could have a bad scheme versus the scheme that you're going up against. Yeah. So like they've got to do better for these players, man. I don't hear anything about talent this year, right? I don't want to hear anything about the talent gap, any kind of gap this year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I do think that there's some truth to this statement about there was a lot of confusion going on with how we wanted to approach football games as a program last year. And hopefully the unity of at least that much is worth a win. Right.
Agreed.
Like we're going to go in with a unified mindset of this is how we're going to attack. And as long as you show competency in that plan, then you should be able to win at least one of those games that you gave up last year where it just was confusion led to issues on the field leading up to the game and during the game. Daniel Denny jumps in and says, if Auburn loses to Cal, Vandy, and Arkansas, does Auburn fire Hugh Freeze? Let me just say, first and foremost, I might shut down the War Report I just don't know how much I can take. Let's think about this, right?
I'll just sit around coming up with doomsday scenarios.
Yeah, listen, what? You lose to Cal and Vandy. You started the season 2-2. I mean, excuse me, Cal and Arkansas. You started the season 2-2.
Yeah, 5-7 might be a reality.
Yeah, bro. Like I don't even want to imagine this scenario enough to think about this. Like, this season has gone so ridiculously wrong, or the injury bug absolutely decimates you like game 2 of the season.
Listen, in this scenario, you guys, our listeners, will be too deflated to even come here and complain about it. Yeah, you're not going to want to hear us talk about this. So for the sake of all that is right with our business model, I hope that this does not happen, because nobody's going to want to talk about Auburn football.
It's going to be bad. We'll turn into a basketball pod real quick.
Guys, it's October. Yeah, but Bruce Pearl's got quiet.
Super chat from Oda says, I have this feeling Hank will be QB1 come the Arkansas game.
Hey,
well, you are on the same page. Well,
if it happens, I hope that's when it happens.
Well, you're close to the same page. I was going to say you're on the same page as Ant. Ant says game 3. This is game 4. So you're giving Payton at least one more game before he has to relinquish duties as quarterback 1. Ryan Brown said, should all SEC teams adjust how they feel about win totals now that they're added competition with Oklahoma and Texas? How should Alabama and Georgia feel about 10 wins?
No, they're still going to feel disappointed with it because that's where their standards are at.
Yeah, and you still want to win SEC championships.
Yeah, you still want to win it.
You want to have higher seeds in the playoffs. So, yes, you're going to be disappointed. Now, will you be a little less disappointed, right? Because you got to think about how Alabama fans adjusted themselves in the 14 playoff era, where it was like, yeah, but we still made the playoff, and then we went in there and won it one year when everybody didn't think they should have. Went to the national title game, and played for championships, even though they might not have won the conference, right? So maybe that adjustment happens in that scenario. But I think you then start playing outcomes more than you do the win totals, right? Because you're going to feel terrible when it happens, but you'll forget about it if you get into the playoff and then you go win.
Yeah.
But if you get into the playoff, even with 10 wins and you don't win it, you're going to be like, well, if we had won those other 2 games, we'd have been the 1 seed and we'd have gotten the bye and blah, right? So I don't know that your expectations necessarily change unless your outcomes also change, which means, again, You lose those 2 games, you still get into the playoff, and then you go in there and you win the whole thing.
Yep.
Oda with a super chat says, then again, PT could come out and light it up.
He could. I'm banking on it. So we'll see. I'm banking on it. I think we see a very, very different Auburn offense.
Forever Bankroll says, we lose that many games, I'm hopping on NCAA and fixing it my damn self.
Yeah. Get on dynasty mode and make it happen.
Yeah, man. Listen, bro, like I don't even really want to like walk down the path of that, because that's just, I mean, that to me that shows a level of this, that's almost incompetence to get into, because again, what you're saying is you have mismanaged better talent and gotten worse results on the field. That's what has to happen in that scenario.
I mean, look, in this world that is modern day college football coaching, you can move slowly, you can move fast, you can stand still even maybe for a season, but you cannot move backwards. Right? The only thing that won't be tolerated is moving backwards. So, you went 6-6 last year. You may be able to stomach another 6-6 season. That's going to be hard to swallow, but you definitely 5-7 means something fell apart. You cannot do that. So, like I said, I'm not anticipating that.
No, I don't anticipate it either. And again, it goes disastrously wrong if something happens like that. All right, we're going to get out of here. We appreciate everybody for hopping in here with us on this 4th of July Eve. Hopefully everybody's going to have a great 4th of July. Mike G, go ahead and tell the people ways that they can support what we've got going on here.
Well, let me give you a reason why you should support. I'm going to start this. I'm going to start beating this drum early this year. We got everybody here listening, 164 people. Oh, we got another super chat. Alan Berry says, Ohio State has 2 of the best players out of Alabama, and today Alabama got the best player out of Ohio. Modern recruiting is wild. Agreed. It's the wild, wild west out here, and players have a lot of different things to consider when they're choosing a program. So, the money is going to mess a few guys up. There's always, every year, there's going to be a guy, high-profile recruit, that makes a money decision that he's going to have to undo the next year. So I would, if Auburn misses on a guy in this recruiting cycle, there's a chance that guy still may end up at Auburn with these new portal rules.
For sure.
So just something to keep in mind. Now, what I was going to say is, every year, if you're new to the War Report, every year we give away 2 tickets to every single home game. We buy season tickets just to give away to you guys. And all you have to do is watch the War Report and be here on a show day. I think it's Wednesdays we give them away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wednesdays we give them away to win. So tell a friend, join the live streams, guys. Oklahoma comes to Auburn for the first time ever. We're giving away 2 tickets to that game. I love it too when you guys come back and say that was my first Auburn home game ever. But that's not always who wins. I'm just saying you definitely want to watch for that reason. We give back to our listeners, and that's one of my favorite things that we do. You can give back to us by hitting that join button. $6 a month increases the likelihood that you might be on the receiving end of one of those tickets. Look, man, we're opening it up to everybody this year, but our members, tend to win more than other people. So everybody watch, join as a member. Please help support the work that we're doing. Hit that gifted membership button as well. Help somebody else get the gift of the War Report, and listen to us on podcasts, every single podcast platform, Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec, bringing you guys lots of great content. Check out Vintage $22.98 if you're in the Auburn area looking for a great fine dining experience. Vintage has you covered. Our guy, Chef Randall Baldwin, is over there cooking up something nice. I recommend the elk if you've never had elk. It is both tender and succulent. So get yourself some elk over there at Vintage. I want to thank show sponsor Manscaped. Visit manscaped.com and use code RAPPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping. Treat your balls with Manscaped. Get them ready. It's hot out here. It's humid. Manscaped can help you with that. Last but certainly not least, I want to thank show sponsor, the Opelika and the Birmingham Rage Room. Visit them at 1510 2nd Ave in Opelika or 2616 7th Ave South in Birmingham, Alabama. This is a very, very unique experience. If you've never, I talk about this every show, but if you've never busted a windshield with a baseball bat, it's oddly satisfying. And I was just by there a couple days ago, watching the windshields get loaded in. I'm like, God, man, they have so many windshields. It's crazy. And for some reason, people like breaking baby car seats. I don't know what that's about, but you can do it at the Rage Room. So please go visit and patron them. Let them know the War Report sent you.
Yes, indeed. Before y'all get out of here, make sure that you share the content with somebody. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button to like the video. You can follow us on social media. We're at the War Report, Twitter and Instagram, TW Report on TikTok. We'll be back at you guys with some more great content. Again, enjoy your holiday, man, and hopefully everybody has a safe time out there. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.